My home turned to ash in a matter of minutes. Desperate, I went to my son's door. He looked at his wife and laughed. "Look at this. My mother wants to live here." Then he said, "There's no room for a burden like you." And he closed the door without a second thought. With no other options, I called the boy I raised as if he were my own son. Today, the owner of an empire. His helicopter landed in the middle of the smoke, and he said just 3 words. I'm 68 years old, and I never, not once, imagined I would watch my entire life disappear in under 10 minutes. The smell came first, that strange chemical aroma that seizes your chest. Then came the gray smoke, slithering under my bedroom door. When I opened it, the hallway was a hell of orange. The flames moved as if they had a life of their own, devouring the curtains my mother gave me when I got married 42 years ago. I didn't have time to think. I just managed to grab my embroidered handbag, the one my husband Arthur gave me for our 20th anniversary, with our initials intertwined in gold thread, and ran for the front door. The heat was scorching my back. My slippers were melting on the floor. Outside, my neighbors were already calling the fire department. Mrs. Gable hugged me as I trembled, watching the windows explode one by one. Each explosion was a memory dying. There went the album with Leo's baby pictures. There went the antique piano where my grandmother taught me to play. There went the jewelry I inherited, which I planned to leave for my granddaughter. The firefighters arrived 20 minutes later, but it was already too late. The fire had won. "Eleanor," the fire chief said, with that voice that tries to be gentle but only carries bad news. "The origin was electrical. The wiring was old. I'm so sorry, but it's a total loss. Total loss. 40 years of my life reduced to smoldering rubble and 2 cold words." "Did you have insurance, ma'am?" a younger firefighter asked. I just shook my head. I had canceled it 6 months earlier. My retired nurse's pension barely covered food, and the insurance was $500 a month. I just couldn't afford anymore. I never thought something like this would happen to me. I stood there, clutching my embroidered handbag to my chest as the dawn painted the ashes of what was my home in shades of pink. I had nothing left. No clothes, no documents, nowhere to sleep that night. And in that moment, with the smoke still burning my lungs, I could only think of one thing. I needed my son. If this story is stirring something inside you, subscribe to the channel to keep hearing confessions like this one that will make you reflect on family, love, and dignity. But what was coming next? I couldn't have imagined it in my worst nightmares. Leo lives just 40 minutes from where my house was, or rather, where it used to be. With trembling hands, I dialed his number while Mrs. Gable held my arm. The phone rang 5 times before he answered. "Mom, it's 6 in the morning." His voice was irritated, sleepy. "Son, my house." It burned down. Everything burned. I could barely speak through the sobs. "I have nothing, Leo. I need to—" "Wait, what? It burned down?" There was a silence. "Look, I can't talk right now. Isabella and I have an important dinner tonight, and— Leo, please, I have nowhere to go." Another silence, longer, colder. "All right, come over. But just for tonight, you understand? Just to get yourself organized." Mrs. Gable lent me $50 for the cab. The whole way, I clung to my embroidered handbag as if it were the only thing connecting me to the person I was yesterday. The taxi driver didn't even charge me the full fare when I told him what had happened. There are still good people in this world. Leo's house is in Beverly Hills, an area where mansions have wrought iron gates and gardens that look like they're from a magazine. 3 floors of gray stone, enormous windows, 2 brand new SUVs parked in the driveway. My son had come a long way. He worked as a financial director at a multinational. He made more in a month than I had in years. I felt so small standing in front of that carved wooden door. I rang the bell. Once. Twice. Isabella opened it. 35 years old. Tall, thin, with that kind of beauty that intimidates. She was wearing an ivory-colored silk robe, her hair perfectly styled, even though it was barely dawn. She looked me up and down, my clothes smelling of smoke, my face smudged with soot, my half-melted slippers, and her mouth twisted into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Eleanor," she said my name as if it hurt her tongue. "Leo told me." How unfortunate. She didn't invite me in. She just stood there, blocking the entrance. "Is Leo here?" I asked, my voice sounding so weak. "He's getting dressed. We have a very busy day. Isabella, please. I just need a place to stay while I—" "Honey," she called inside, never taking her eyes off me. "Your mother is here." Leo appeared behind her, my son. The boy I had carried in my arms, who I had fed with my own milk, who I had cared for when he had pneumonia at 5, and the doctors weren't sure he would survive. That boy was now a 42-year-old man in an Italian suit and a watch that cost more than my house. Well, what was left of my house. Our eyes met, and then something happened that I will never forget. Leo looked at Isabella. She looked back at him, and they both laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh, it was a laugh of mockery, of disbelief, as if my presence on their doorstep was the most absurd joke in the world. "Look at this," Leo said, still with that half smile. "My mother wants to live here." The words hit me harder than the heat from the fire. "Leo, Mom," he interrupted me, and his tone was the same he would use with an annoying street vendor. "There's no room for a burden like you. Isabella and I have our lives organized. We can't be taking care of situations. That's what he called my tragedy, a situation. But son, it's just until I can get on my feet." "I'm sorry," he said, but there wasn't an ounce of apology in his eyes. "Look up an old friend or call social services. They have shelters for people in your condition." Isabella placed a hand on Leo's shoulder, possessive, protecting her territory. "We have appointments, Eleanor, I'm sure you understand." And then Leo closed the door. He didn't slam it. That would have been almost more honest. No. He closed it slowly, calmly, like someone closing the refrigerator door after seeing there's nothing interesting inside. I stood there, on the front step of my son's mansion, with the morning sun warming my back and the cold of his rejection freezing my soul. A woman sweeping the sidewalk of the house next door saw me. She quickly looked away, ashamed. She had heard everything, too. I walked back to the street. My legs were shaking. Not from exhaustion, from something much worse. The kind of pain that makes you question everything you thought you knew about love, about family, about who you are. And then, sitting on the curb in a neighborhood that would never be mine, clutching my embroidered handbag and with tears I could no longer hold back, I remembered someone. Someone who didn't share my blood, but who maybe shared something more important. I took out my phone. I searched for a number I hadn't dialed in 2 months, since his birthday. And with my heart pounding in my throat, I called Julian, because if my own son had closed the door in my face, maybe the boy I raised as if he were my own, who slept on my couch and ate at my table when no one else wanted him, would still remember what loyalty means. The phone rang 3 times. 4. I thought he wouldn't answer. After all, Julian was an important man now, with companies, with responsibilities. Why would he remember an old woman who— Mom Eleanor? His voice, that voice that 28 years ago was high-pitched and scared, was now deep and confident but still called me Mom. Julian, son, my voice broke. My house burned down. I have nothing. Where are you? His tone changed instantly. Alert, protective. I'm at Leo's house, but what did Leo do? The question was as sharp as a razor. I couldn't answer. I just cried. And in that cry, Julian understood everything. Give me your exact location. I'll be there in 90 minutes. Don't move. Do you hear me, Mom? Do not move from where you are. 90 minutes. He promised 90 minutes, and I knew he would keep it. Because Julian always did. As I waited, sitting on that curb, the memories came in waves. Memories of how I met the boy who was now coming to rescue me. It was 1997. I was 40 and I had just come back from a double shift at the hospital. Arthur was still alive. Leo was 14. We lived in a small but decent house in Pasadena. Our next-door neighbor was named Stella, 32 years old, addicted to heroin, with a 9-year-old son named Julian, who was always alone. I would see him from my window, a skinny boy with huge, sad eyes sitting on the steps of his house, waiting for his mother to come back. Sometimes he waited for days. One afternoon, I found him crying on the street. He had a split lip. "What happened, sweetie?" I asked. "My mom's boyfriend said I'm a nuisance. He pushed me." That night, I gave him dinner: noodle soup, fresh rice and beans, and a fried egg. He ate 3 plates as if he hadn't eaten in days, which was probably the case. "Does your mother know where you are?" Julian shook his head. "She hasn't been home since the day before yesterday." From that day on, Julian started knocking on my door. Timidly at first, then with confidence. I would give him breakfast before school, check his homework in the afternoon, patch up his scraped knees. Arthur protested. "Eleanor, this isn't our problem. We have Leo to support. He's a child, Arthur. A child who has no one. He has a mother. Having a mother and having someone to care for you are 2 different things." When Julian turned 11, Stella disappeared. She just left one morning with a dealer from Nevada who promised her a better life. She left Julian a note. "Forgive me. I can't do this anymore. I wanted to adopt him legally. I started the process, but Arthur opposed it. He said we couldn't afford another child. We argued for weeks. In the end, he never signed the papers. But it didn't matter." Julian moved onto my couch anyway. He slept there for 5 years until he got a scholarship for a high school in San Diego and had to leave. I bought him his suitcase, his uniforms, and packed him lunches for 2 weeks. "Mom Eleanor," he told me on the day he left at 16 with tears in his eyes, "when I grow up and have money, I'm going to buy you a huge house, and I'm going to take care of you like you took care of me. I don't need huge houses, my boy. I just need you to be happy and never forget where you came from." I hugged him, not knowing that Arthur would die 2 years later from a heart attack, not knowing that Leo would marry Isabella and become someone I didn't recognize, not knowing that the skinny boy from the couch would become a man who built skyscrapers all over the city. Julian studied civil engineering. He worked during the day and studied at night, graduated with honors. At 25, he started his first construction company. At 30, he had government contracts. At 35, he owned 3 real estate development firms. And he never, ever stopped visiting me, never stopped calling me Mom. The sound of the helicopter pulled me from my memories. Yes, a helicopter, landing in the middle of the residential street in Beverly Hills, kicking up dust and leaves, making the neighbors come to their windows, mouths agape. The blades slowed, the door opened, and Julian stepped out. 37 years old, tall, broad-shouldered, in an impeccable gray suit, but with a face twisted with worry. He ran to me with the same urgency he ran into my arms when he was 9 and needed refuge. He hugged me, tight, as if he wanted to shield me from the entire world. "I'm here now," he whispered into my hair. "I'm here, Mom. I'm here." 3 words. Just 3 words that meant everything Leo couldn't bring himself to say. I cried against his chest as he held me, and in that moment, surrounded by the noise of the helicopter and the stunned looks of the neighbors, including Leo and Isabella, who had come out of their house upon hearing the commotion, I understood something fundamental. Family isn't always the blood you share. Sometimes it's the love you choose to give and the love you choose to receive. Julian helped me into the helicopter. Before getting in, I looked at Leo's house. He was just standing there, mouth open, watching his mother being rescued by the boy he had always considered the starving kid from the couch. "Let's go, Mom," Julian said, extending his hand. And we went. We literally flew away from that place where my own son had called me a burden. But this was just the beginning. Because what I didn't know at that moment was that Julian wasn't just coming to rescue me. He was coming to give me the chance to reclaim something far more valuable than a house. He was coming to give me back my dignity. I had never been in a helicopter. At 68 years old, my first time flying over Los Angeles was with tears drying on my face and the smell of smoke still clinging to my clothes. Julian was by my side, holding my hand. He said nothing during the flight. It wasn't necessary. His presence was enough. We landed on the helipad of the Beverly Hills Hotel. A manager was waiting for us with 3 staff members. Julian must have called during the flight. Mrs. Vance, the manager, gave a bow that seemed exaggerated to me. "Your suite is ready. We've prepared everything according to Mr. Croft's instructions." Suite. I had never in my life stayed in a hotel suite. Julian guided me to the elevator with a hand on my back. That protective gesture that reminded me of when he was little, and I would take him to the doctor and he would cling to my skirt in fear. The suite was on the 18th floor. When they opened the door, I almost fell over. It was bigger than my entire house. A living room with huge windows overlooking the whole city. A bedroom with a king-size bed, a marble bathroom with a jacuzzi tub, a private terrace. There were fresh flowers on every table, a basket with fruit and cheese, and even a bottle of wine with a card that read, "Welcome home, Mom Eleanor." "Son, this is too much," I whispered. "This is the bare minimum." His voice trembled with restrained emotion. "You gave me a roof when I had nothing. Now it's my turn." I collapsed onto the sofa, not from physical fatigue, but from pure emotional exhaustion. In less than 6 hours, I had lost my home, been rejected by my own son, and was now in a luxury hotel, being cared for by the boy who once slept on my couch. Julian knelt in front of me, just as he did when he was little and wanted to tell me something important. "Listen to me carefully, Mom Eleanor. I'm going to handle everything. Tomorrow morning, a doctor will come to examine you. Then, we'll buy you new clothes. And after that," he paused, "after that, we'll find permanent solutions. But today, just today, I want you to rest. Take a long bath, eat well, and know that you're not alone. Julian, the cost of this must be $4,500 a night," he said without blinking. "And I don't give a damn. Sorry for the language, but it's the truth. You paid much more than that raising me. This isn't even the first installment on my debt to you." He stood up and called his assistant, a young woman who appeared with a tablet. "Jessica, please confirm the appointment with Dr. Ramirez for tomorrow at 9. And get in touch with Sonia at the Rodeo Drive Boutique. Have her bring clothing options, size." He looked at me. "What size do you wear, Mom?" "Size 12. "But son, you don't have to." "Size 12, he continued, not listening to me. "Casual, elegant clothes, comfortable shoes, everything a lady who deserves all the respect in the world needs. Open budget." Jessica quickly noted everything down. "I also need you to book the best insurance appraiser you know. I want him to go to the land where Mom Eleanor's house was and give me a full report. Reconstruction costs, legal procedures, everything." "Reconstruction?" I asked, incredulous. Julian turned to me with a gentle smile. "Did you think I was going to leave you without a home? Mom, I'm going to rebuild that house for you, better than it was, with new, safe installations, and this time, with an insurance policy that I will pay for the rest of your life." The tears returned, but these were different. They weren't from pain. They were from something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. "I can't accept all this. You can, and you will." His tone was firm but loving, because that's what family does, real family, not the one that closes the door on you, the one that opens its arms. He came closer and gave me a kiss on the forehead, exactly as I used to do with him when he had nightmares and I would comfort him in the middle of the night. "Rest, Mom. I'll come tomorrow morning with fresh coffee and those sweet rolls from that bakery you like in Pasadena. Remember? We used to go there when I was a boy. I remember my son. Of course I remember. Julian left, but he left Jessica with instructions that I could order anything from room service without worrying about a thing. I was alone in that enormous suite. I stood in front of the window watching the city light up with the evening lights. From up there, everything seemed small. The problems, the tragedies, even Leo's rejection. My phone vibrated, a text message. It was from Leo. "Mom, what was that circus? Since when does Julian have a helicopter? We need to talk." I read the message 3 times. No apology. No, "Are you okay?" Just curiosity about Julian's money. I didn't reply. Because in that moment, I understood something that hurt me, but also freed me. My son hadn't come looking for me out of remorse. He had come out of envy. I took the longest bath of my life. The hot water washed away the smell of smoke, but it couldn't wash away the pain of knowing that the son I bore had failed me, while the son I raised had saved me. That night, in a bed more comfortable than any I had ever slept in, clutching my embroidered handbag, the only thing I had left from my old life, I thought of Arthur, of how he had opposed Julian's adoption, of how he told me we couldn't afford it. "Look where we are now, my love," I whispered into the darkness. It turns out the boy we couldn't afford is the only one who can afford to take care of me. And for the first time since the fire, I smiled, because Julian's 3 words, "I'm here now," meant more than any elaborate speech. They meant presence, loyalty, unconditional love, the same kind I gave him when the world had turned its back on him. And now, without knowing it yet, I was about to discover just how much my life had truly changed. Because Julian wasn't just coming with helicopters and hotel suites, he was coming with plans. Plans that would put everyone in their proper place, especially my son Leo and his wife Isabella. The next 5 days at the hotel were surreal, like living someone else's life, a person who deserved to be pampered, cared for, respected. Julian kept every promise. He arrived every morning at 8 with fresh coffee in a thermos and pastries straight from the oven. He would sit with me on the terrace as the October sun painted the city gold, and we would talk about everything, about nothing. Like when he was a teenager and told me his dreams of building buildings that touched the sky. Dr. Ramirez came and examined me from head to toe, blood pressure high from stress, but nothing serious. She prescribed me something to help me sleep better and made me promise to eat 3 meals a day. "Your son is very worried about you," she told me as she put away her stethoscope. "He's not my biological son," I clarified. I don't know why I felt the need to say that. She looked at me with those wise eyes that only doctors with years of experience have. "Mrs. Vance, I've seen many types of families in my career, and believe me when I say that biology is the least of it. That young man loves you as if he carried you in his own womb. That's what counts." Sonia arrived from Rodeo Drive with 3 suitcases full of clothes, comfortable but elegant dresses, soft cotton blouses, pants that fit me perfectly, shoes that didn't hurt my bunions, even new lingerie and a silk pajama set that made me feel like a queen. Mr. Croft was very specific, Sonia explained as she organized everything in the closet. He said, "I want my mother to feel like the valuable woman she is." Those were his exact words. The total cost was $25,000. When I saw the receipt, I nearly fainted. Julian just shrugged. "Mom, I spend more than that on gas for my SUVs in a month. Please, let me do this." But luxury couldn't heal the wound, that deep fissure that had opened in my chest when Leo closed that door. The nights were the worst. When everything was quiet and the city slept below, I would lie awake staring at the ceiling, remembering. I remembered when Leo was 7 and got sick with scarlet fever. I spent 3 nights without sleep by his side, placing cool cloths on his forehead, praying to the Holy Mother that she wouldn't take him. Arthur was traveling. I was alone with my fear, holding his hand while he was delirious with fever. When he got better, he hugged me and said, "Mom, when I grow up, I'm going to take care of you just like you take care of me. I promise." Children's promises, so sincere in the moment, so fragile over time. I remembered when he turned 15 and wanted a mountain bike that cost $900. I was making $2,000 a month as a nurse. Arthur had just lost his job at the factory. We had no extra money. I worked double shifts for 2 months. I pulled all-nighters. My feet ached. I would get home when Leo was already asleep and leave before he woke up. But on his birthday, there it was. The bike, red and shiny with a giant bow. His smile that day was worth every callus on my feet. I remembered when he got into a private university. The tuition was $2,000 a month. We didn't have that money. We had a piece of land my parents left me in Lake Arrowhead. A piece of land I thought I'd save for my old age, to sell if I ever needed it. I sold it for $100,000. I paid for his entire 4-year degree. Leo graduated without a single dollar of debt. Meanwhile, I continued to pay rent, with no savings, no reserves. When he got his first job with a good salary, he came home with flowers. "Mom, this is for everything you've done. Now it's my turn to take care of you." But that turn never came. Because 2 years later, he met Isabella. Isabella. Beautiful, sophisticated, from a wealthy family in Chicago. Daughter of textile magnates, accustomed to the good and expensive, to everything revolving around her. From the beginning, she treated me with condescension, as if I were a nice but ignorant country bumpkin. At family lunches, she would correct my way of speaking. "Eleanor, we don't say 'we was.' We say 'we were,'" she would tell me with that fake smile. She never called me mother-in-law, never mom, just Eleanor, as if we were friends of the same age instead of family. Leo changed gradually. He started to get embarrassed by our humble house when Isabella came over. He would buy expensive wine to impress her, and he would ask me to use the good china, the only china we had. "Mom, could you maybe, I don't know, dress up a little more when Isabella comes? She's used to a certain style." That sentence hurt me more than any slap. After the wedding, the visits became less frequent, once a month, then every 2 months, then only on Christmas and my birthday, and always in a hurry, always with more important commitments, always with Isabella looking at her watch impatiently. Last year, on my 67th birthday, they didn't even come. Leo sent me a text, "Sorry, Mom. Isabella organized a spa weekend in Malibu, and it's all paid for. I'll make it up to you later." He never made it up to me. And now, after closing the door in my face in my most vulnerable moment, he was sending me texts asking about Julian's helicopter, about the money, about what he could get. One night at the hotel, I fell apart. I called Julian crying at 2 a.m. "Mom, what happened? Are you okay?" "I can't sleep, son. I keep thinking, what did I do wrong? At what point did I lose my son?" Silence on the other end of the line. "Give me 20 minutes, he finally said. He arrived in his pajamas with a coat over them and his hair disheveled. He was carrying a bag from the pharmacy. "Chamomile tea," he said, showing me. "Like you used to make for me when I couldn't sleep." We sat in the suite's living room. He prepared the tea in the minibar's coffee maker while I wrapped myself in a blanket. "Mom, Eleanor, you did nothing wrong." His voice was firm. "You were an extraordinary mother. The problem isn't you. It's that Leo chose the wrong person and let her change him. But he's my son, Julian. He came from me. How could he close the door on me like that? Because children don't always live up to the love they received." He handed me the tea. And sometimes, those who aren't your children by blood are the ones who best understand the value of what you gave them. He held me as I cried on his shoulder. This 37-year-old man, a millionaire, owner of an empire, comforting me like I used to comfort him when he was 9 and cried because his mother wasn't coming to get him. "I'm going to find out something," he whispered. "Something doesn't add up." Leo was different before he married Isabella. I need to know what's really going on in that house. What are you going to do? I have contacts, Mom, people who owe me favors. Let me do a little digging. I didn't quite understand what he meant, but I was so tired, so emotionally drained that I just nodded. Julian stayed that night, sleeping on the suite's sofa. Just like old times when he slept on my couch and I would wake up in the middle of the night to check if he was covered. This time I was the one who covered him with a blanket, and I stood there watching him sleep, thinking about the miracle of having found a son in the most unexpected place, while the son I expected to always be by my side had become a stranger. But what Julian was investigating was about to reveal truths I couldn't even imagine, truths that would explain everything, and that would turn my pain into something completely different, into indignation, into rage, and finally, into reclaimed dignity. 4 days passed before Julian mentioned the subject again. 4 days in which I noticed he was quieter, more thoughtful. He'd arrive with the coffee and pastries, but his mind was elsewhere. "Is something wrong, son?" I asked him one morning as we had coffee on the terrace. "I'm waiting for some information," was all he said. The information arrived on a Friday afternoon. I was watching a soap opera when Julian entered the suite without knocking. His expression was a mix of restrained fury and deep sadness. "Mom, I need you to see something, and I'm warning you, it's gonna hurt." He sat next to me on the sofa with his tablet. His hands were trembling slightly as he opened a file. I hired a private investigator, someone discreet, professional. I asked him to find out what was really happening in Leo's house. My stomach clenched. "Julian, I don't know if I want to..." "You need to know, Mom. You need to understand that what he did to you wasn't by chance. It was premeditated." He touched the screen. An audio file started to play. It was Isabella's voice. Unmistakable. Sharp. Authoritarian. "Leo, I've told you 1,000 times. Your mother is a professional manipulator. She's spent her whole life making you feel guilty to get your money." My son's voice responded, but it sounded weak, insecure. "Isabella, don't exaggerate. My mother has never asked me for money directly." "Oh, no? And what about that?" "Oh, son, my pension isn't enough?" Or, "Oh, son, my water heater broke." It's emotional manipulation. She wants you to pay for everything while she plays the victim. But she gave me everything when I was a child, because it was her obligation. You don't owe her anything, Leo. She chose to be a mother. No one forced her. Now that you have money, she wants to live off you? Like a leech. My heart stopped. Literally, I felt it stop beating for a second. Julian paused the audio. He looked at me with his eyes full of tears. "There's more, Mom. A lot more." He pressed play again. "Besides, that old woman has been bad-mouthing me to your aunts. She told your Aunt Sonia that I was a gold digger, that I only married you for money. Are you going to let her defame your wife? My mother said that? I can't believe it. Ask your aunt if you don't believe me. Eleanor is that type of toxic mother-in-law who wants to control her children forever. But she won't get away with it with me. If you truly love me, you'll set boundaries. You'll choose me over her." Silence on the recording. Then Leo's defeated voice. "You're right. I need to set boundaries." "Good. And when she comes with her next drama, because there's always a drama, don't give her money. And don't let her stay here. This is our house, not a shelter for old ladies who pretend to be poor." The audio ended. I stared at the blank screen. My mind was trying to process what I had just heard. The lies, the manipulations, the way Isabella had poisoned my son's mind. Never. My voice came out choked. I never spoke ill of her to anyone. I never said anything to Sonia or any of my sisters-in-law. I was always polite to her, even when she treated me with contempt. I know, Mom. That's why I had that investigated too. I personally called your sister-in-law, Sonia. She confirmed that you never had that conversation. Isabella lied through her teeth. Julian swiped the screen. Photographs, receipts, bank statements appeared. And there's more. Look at this. He showed me Isabella's credit card expenses from the last year, an average of $30,000 a month. Spas, expensive restaurants, designer clothes, cosmetic treatments. While she was spending this, you were canceling your home insurance because you couldn't afford $500 a month. The irony was like a knife in my stomach. Here, Julian continued, messages between Isabella and her sister. He read them aloud. I've finally convinced Leo that his mother is a drama queen. When she comes with her crises, he won't open the door. Finally, this house will be just ours, with no old ladies getting in the way. Sister's reply, good for you. Mothers-in-law are parasites. Better she goes to a nursing home. Isabella, not even that. Let her fend for herself. Leo belongs to me now. Every word was pure poison. But the worst part wasn't Isabella's venom. It was that Leo had chosen to drink it. There's one more thing, Mom. Julian closed the photo folder and looked me directly in the eyes. On the day of the fire, when you called him, there's a record that after hanging up with you, Leo called Isabella. She was at the gym. The investigator spoke to one of the personal trainers who overheard them. What did they say? Leo told her about the fire. Isabella replied, don't you dare let her stay here. Tell her you don't have space. Be firm, or she'll never leave. And Leo obeyed. I got up from the sofa. I needed to move, to walk, to do something with all the anger that was starting to boil in my chest. So it was all planned, I said, more to myself than to Julian. The little laugh, the cruel words. There's no room for a burden like you. All of it planned. Yes, Isabella programmed him like you program a machine, and he let her. I stopped in front of the window, looking at the city, millions of lights, millions of people, and I felt like the loneliest of them all. You know what hurts the most, Julian? My voice was almost a whisper. It's not that Isabella is cruel. It's that Leo believed her. He's known me for 42 years. He knows my character, my way of being. And still, he chose to believe I was manipulative, a liar, a gold digger. Julian came up behind me and put his hands on my shoulders. Because it was easier. It's easier to believe the lies that absolve you of responsibility than to face the truth that requires you to be a better person. I turned to face him. What am I going to do with this? Confront him? Show him the proof? You could, Julian said slowly, but I have a better idea. One that will teach him a lesson he'll never forget. One that will show him exactly who his mother is and who he is. There was something in his eyes, a calculating glint that I recognized. It was the same look he had when he was a teenager and was planning how to solve some complicated problem. What are you thinking? I asked. Not revenge, Mom. Justice. There's a difference. Revenge seeks to hurt. Justice seeks to balance the scales. He sat down again and pulled me to sit beside him. Leo and Isabella acted this way because they think you're weak, that you're alone, that you have no options or support. We're going to show them how wrong they are, but not by confronting them directly. That would only put them on the defensive. Then how? Julian smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a smile that was a little scary. We're going to create a situation where they themselves reveal their true nature, where their greed and hypocrisy are exposed, in front of everyone, in front of family, friends, in front of themselves. I don't understand. You will, Mom. But I need you to trust me. Do you trust me? I looked at him. This man who flew in a helicopter to rescue me, who was paying for a $4,500 a night hotel suite without blinking, who hired investigators to find the truth, who held me when I cried at 2 a.m, with my life, son. I trust you with my life. Good. Because what I'm going to do requires your participation. It's going to require you to act a little, to pretend. Can you do that? I thought of Leo laughing at me with Isabella. I thought of the lies, of the door closing in my face, of 42 years of love being discarded like trash. I can act, I said, and my voice sounded firmer than I expected. Teach me what I have to do. Julian opened a notebook and began to explain his plan. And with every word, every detail he revealed, I felt something in me change. It wasn't just pain. It wasn't just disappointment. It was determination. Because my son needed to learn a lesson I never taught him when he was a child, that actions have consequences, and that a mother's love has its limits, especially when that love was never valued. Before executing Julian's plan, I needed to go back to my neighborhood, to what was left of my house. The insurance adjusters, well, the ones Julian hired since I didn't have insurance, needed me to be present to assess the damage and make an inventory of the losses. Julian accompanied me in his SUV, a black Audi Q7 that cost more than all the houses on my street combined. When we turned the corner onto my old street, I felt the air leave my lungs. The rubble was still there. Soot-blackened walls, the skeleton of what was my bedroom, pieces of my life scattered like garbage. The fire department had cordoned off the area, but the curious still passed by to look. I got out of the car. My legs were shaking. "Are you okay, Mom?" Julian held my arm. "Yes, son. Just give me a moment." I walked among the debris. I recognized what was left of my grandmother's piano, the melted keys, the charred wood. There was the scorched frame of my wedding photo. There, the remains of the wardrobe where I kept Leo's first communion suit. All lost, 40 years of memories reduced to ashes. Eleanor. The voice made me turn. It was Mrs. Gable, my lifelong neighbor. She was walking quickly down the sidewalk, her kitchen apron still on, and that expression that meant she had fresh gossip. "Oh, Eleanor, I'm so glad you came. We need to talk." She grabbed my arm with an excessive familiarity. "Mrs. Gable, I'm with the adjusters. I can't right now." "It's important, my dear. It's about your son." I felt Julian stiffen beside me, but I signaled that it was okay. "What about Leo?" Mrs. Gable looked around, ensuring there was a sufficient audience. I recognized 3 other neighbors who were casually sweeping their sidewalks, but with their ears wide open. "Look, I didn't want to tell you, but everyone's already talking." She lowered her voice in that fake tone of confidence that actually wants everyone to hear. "The day of the fire, when you took a cab to Leo's house." "Yes? Well, I was watering my plants out front, you see, and I saw when you got there." My stomach clenched. Of course, she had seen me. Mrs. Gable lived to watch other people's lives. "I saw when you rang the bell. I saw when that daughter-in-law of yours opened the door with that look of disgust. And I heard." She made a dramatic sign of the cross. "I heard when your son closed the door in your face. His own mother, on the same day her house burned down." The other neighbors moved closer, feigning surprise, although it was obvious Mrs. Gable had already told them everything 1,000 times. "I couldn't believe it," Mrs. Gable continued. "I told my friend Lupita. Did you see that? Did you see how Eleanor's son left her on the street? It's just not fair, woman. After all you did for that boy." "Mrs. Gable, this is a private matter." I tried to silence her. "Private? Oh, my dear, it's the talk of the whole neighborhood. Even at Mr. Beddoes' corner store, they're talking about it." Shame washed over me. Not shame for what happened, but shame that everyone knew, of being the neighborhood gossip. The poor old lady rejected by her own son. And that's not all. Mrs. Gable was in her element now. Turns out, the next day, Leo came here. Yes, he came to see the rubble. And when Mr. Beddoe asked about you, you know what he said? "I didn't want to know, but Mrs. Gable didn't wait for my answer. He said you were being very dramatic, that he had offered you money for a hotel, but you refused because you wanted to stay at his house to manipulate him. Manipulate him, those were his words." Tears stung my eyes, not of sadness, of rage. Pure rage. "That's a lie." My voice came out stronger than I expected. "Leo never offered me anything. Not $1, not one night, nothing." "Of course it's a lie, my dear. All of us who know you're not manipulative. But you know how people are. Some believed him. They're going around saying you exaggerate your problems to get money from your son." Mrs. Remedies, another neighbor, approached, shaking her head. "I didn't believe it for a second, Eleanor. I told them. That lady worked double shifts for years to put that ungrateful boy through college. And this is how he repays her? And that wife?" Mrs. Gable added with contempt. "That posh girl, Isabella. Turns out she came too, 2 days ago. Arrived in her $500,000 SUV with her designer sunglasses. And when Mrs. Stella asked if she was coming to see how you were, you know what she answered?" I closed my eyes. I didn't want to hear anymore, but the words kept coming like knives. She said, "Eleanor is perfectly fine. She's always known how to take care of herself. She doesn't need anyone to support her." And she laughed. She laughed, Eleanor, as if it were a joke. Julian stepped forward. His jaw was so tight I could see the muscle pulse. "Ladies, with all due respect, my mother Eleanor is going through a very difficult time. I don't think she needs to hear gossip right now." Mrs. Gable sized him up, noticing for the first time his expensive suit, his watch, the luxury SUV parked nearby. "And who are you, young man?" "I'm Julian Croft. Eleanor raised me since I was a boy." "Ah, yes, the boy from the couch." Mrs. Gable clicked her tongue. "Look how well you've done for yourself. So different from others who forget who gave birth to them, isn't it?" The jab was as subtle as a brick to the face. "Ladies," I said, finding my voice, "I appreciate the concern. But as my son says, this is not the time." "Your son?" Mrs. Gable raised her eyebrows. "You call him son? But he's not yours. He's more my son than the one who was born from me," I interrupted, and the words came out with crystal clarity. "Because this man flew in a helicopter to rescue me on the day of the fire. He gave me shelter, food, dignity, while my son by blood closed the door on me and then came around here tarnishing my name with lies." A silence fell. "Helicopter?" Mrs. Remedies asked with wide eyes. "Helicopter," Julian confirmed. "And just so we're clear, I am rebuilding this house, better than it was, with the best installations. And when it's ready, I'm throwing a housewarming party and inviting the whole neighborhood, so they can see that Eleanor Vance doesn't need to beg anyone for anything, and especially not ungrateful sons." The neighbors were speechless. At that moment, I saw movement at the corner. A gray BMW had stopped at the end of the street. Leo. He got out of the car with sunglasses and a dress shirt. Isabella was with him, in high heels, completely unsuitable for walking among rubble. "Damn," I whispered. Julian followed my gaze. "Perfect," he murmured. "Let the show begin." Leo walked toward us with long strides. His expression was hard to read behind the sunglasses. "Mom," he said when he reached my side, "I came to see how you were. You didn't answer my messages." The neighbors watched as if it were a live soap opera. "I had nothing to say to you, Leo. Look, about the other day, maybe I was too harsh. I was stressed with work and..." "And?" I challenged him. "And that's why you called me a burden. And that's why you closed the door in my face while I was shaking with fear with nowhere to sleep." Isabella approached, putting a hand on Leo's arm. "Eleanor, don't be dramatic. Leo just wanted you to find your own solutions instead of depending on..." "Depending?" My voice went up an octave. "Depending on what, Isabella? On the son whose college I paid for? On the son for whom I bought his first car? On the son for whom I sold the only piece of land I had to secure his future?" Leo took off his glasses. There was something in his eyes. Guilt? Shame? "Mom, I didn't..." And then I continued, because 42 years of pent-up frustration were finally finding an outlet. "You go around telling people I'm a manipulator, that I asked you for money and refused it. Pure lies, Leo. Lies to make yourself feel better. I never said..." "Yes, you did," Mrs. Gable chimed in, savoring every second. "Right here, to Mr. Beto. You said your mother exaggerates." Leo turned pale. Isabella tried to save him. "Well, it's just that Eleanor has a tendency to be a bit intense." It's not personal." Julian stepped forward. He had that businessman's posture, used to intimidating. "You know what's intense, Mrs. Vance? Spending $30,000 a month on spas and clothes while your mother-in-law cancels her insurance because she can't afford $500. That's what's intense." Isabella froze. "How do you know that?" "I know a lot of things." Julian smiled coldly. "For example, I know you forbade Leo from helping his mother. I know you invented lies about Eleanor to drive them apart. I know exactly what kind of person you are. Leo, Isabella tugged at his arm, nervous. "Let's go. We don't have to put up with this." But Leo was looking at Julian with a strange expression. "How much money do you have?" he asked suddenly. The question left me cold. Not thank you for taking care of my mother. Not I was wrong, just how much money do you have? Julian looked at him with something akin to pity. Enough to take care of the person who took care of me when no one else would. That's all you need to know. And with that, he took my hand. "Come on, Mom. We're done here." As we walked away towards the SUV, I heard the neighbors' murmurs explode into comments. I heard Mrs. Gable saying, "Did you see that?" And Mrs. Remedies replying, "The fake son turned out to be more of a son than the real one." But what I heard most clearly was Isabella's voice, hissing furiously at Leo. "See? I told you that charity case would be a problem. Now it looks like he has money and your mother is going to manipulate him so that—" I didn't hear the rest because we got into the SUV. Julian started the engine in silence. He drove for 3 blocks before speaking. "Are you okay?" "No," I admitted. "But I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I said it. I'll be okay. Because now I understand something." "What's that?" "That my 40-year reputation in this neighborhood is worth less to my son than the opinion of a woman he's known for 5 years, and that I need to stop hurting over it and start doing something about it." Julian smiled. "Good. Because tomorrow the second phase of the plan begins." "What is it?" "A dinner. A very special dinner, where Leo and Isabella will reveal exactly who they are, in front of everyone, without being able to hide behind lies." I looked out the window. The neighborhood where I had lived for 4 decades was receding in the rearview mirror, and for the first time since the fire, I didn't feel nostalgia. I felt liberation, because I was ready to stop being the victim of this story and become something Leo never saw coming, the protagonist. The invitation arrived 3 days later, a cream-colored envelope with elegant gold calligraphy. "Julian Croft has the honor of inviting you to a celebratory dinner for the launch of his new real estate project, Valley Towers, Friday, November 8th, 8 p.m., Providence Restaurant. Dress code, smart casual." Julian showed me the guest list as we had coffee on the suite's terrace. Leo and Isabella, obviously, but I also invited 3 couples who are my partners, people from my business circle, all wealthy, all influential. I want them to watch the show. "Why do you need witnesses?" I asked. "Because what we're going to do isn't just for you and me, Mom. It's so Leo understands that his actions have social consequences, that people at his level, the level he so desperately wants to be at, will know exactly what kind of man he is." He showed me my invitation. It read, "Special guest of honor, Mrs. Eleanor Vance." Guest of honor? Exactly. I'm going to introduce you as the most important person in my life, and Leo will have to sit there watching the whole world treat you with the respect he denied you. Friday arrived faster than I expected. Julian took me to the most exclusive salon in Beverly Hills. Hair, makeup, manicure. I felt like Cinderella being prepared for the ball. Sonia returned with a dress. When I saw it, I almost cried. It was wine-colored, natural silk, 3/4 sleeves, with a cut that flattered my figure without being over the top. Elegant, dignified, with low-heeled shoes and an embroidered shawl that made me feel like the distinguished ladies I saw in magazines. $10,000, Sonia whispered when I saw the tag. "Julian, this is too much." "Nothing is too much for tonight, Mom. You're going to walk into that restaurant looking like the queen you are, and everyone will know it." At 7:30, Julian came to pick me up in a navy blue suit, silk tie, gold cufflinks. He looked like he belonged on the cover of a business magazine. "You look beautiful, Mom," he said, his eyes shining. Dad would be proud. He had never called him that before. Dad, referring to Arthur. The man who didn't want to adopt him, but who, in the end, had treated him with kindness. He would be proud of you, son, of the man you've become. Providence Restaurant is in Hollywood. It has a Michelin star and a 3-month waiting list. But when you're Julian Croft, doors open. We entered, and the manager greeted us personally. The table was in a private area, surrounded by windows overlooking an inner garden. There were 9 places. 5 were already occupied. Julian's partners and their wives. I recognized them from the news. Albert Salinas, owner of a hotel chain. His wife Monica wore a diamond necklace that probably cost more than my house. Well, what my house cost when it existed. Eleanor. Julian introduced me with a clear, strong voice. "These are my partners and friends, Albert and Monica Salinas, Javier and Fernanda Cardenas, Ricardo Munoz and his wife Deanna. They all greeted me with genuine politeness, with respect, as if I were someone important. "It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Vance," Albert said, shaking my hand. "Julian talks about you all the time, says you're the most important woman in his life." Before I could respond, I heard voices at the entrance. Leo and Isabella had arrived. She wore a tight black dress, a plunging neckline, red stiletto heels, over the top for a business dinner. Leo wore a gray suit but looked uncomfortable. His eyes scanned the room, assessing, calculating who was who. His gaze found me. He stopped abruptly. His expression was one of total surprise. He clearly didn't expect to see me there. Julian stood up and went to greet them with a perfect corporate smile. "Leo, Isabella. So glad you could make it. Come in, come in." He guided them to the table. Leo walked like a robot. Isabella shot me a venomous look as she passed by. Julian made the general introductions. When he got to me, his tone changed. It became warmer, more personal. "And this," he placed a hand on my shoulder, "is Mrs. Eleanor Vance, my mother." The silence lasted 3 seconds. "Your mother?" Albert seemed confused. "I thought you said your biological mother abandoned you." And she did. Julian kept his hand on my shoulder. "But Eleanor adopted me when I was 9. She gave me food when I was hungry, a roof when I had nowhere to sleep, an education when no one else believed in me. She is my mother in every way that matters." Monica smiled at me tenderly. "What a beautiful story. You must be very proud of him." "I am," I said, finding my voice. "I always have been." Leo and Isabella sat in silence. Leo stared at his plate. Isabella toyed with her water glass, clearly uncomfortable. The dinner began. Bone marrow with caviar, scallop crudo, duck with exotic Amazonian flavors, each dish a work of art, each bite probably costing what I used to earn in a day's work. The conversation flowed. Julian talked about his new project, 3 luxury residential towers in Malibu, a $100 million investment, apartments starting at $4 million. Albert was interested. "When does construction start?" "In January. I already have all the permits. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about a possible partnership for—" "Julian," Isabella interrupted him with a syrupy voice. "We didn't know Eleanor would be here. What a surprise." The tone was not one of pleasant surprise. It was of irritated surprise. Why would it be a surprise? Julian returned her gaze. "I said I was introducing someone important. Who else would it be but my mother? It's just—" Isabella forced a laugh. "Well, technically she's not your mother. I mean, not officially." Fernanda Cardenas frowned. "Pardon? I don't understand." What Isabella is trying to say, Leo spoke for the first time, his voice tense, is that Julian isn't Eleanor's biological son. "I am her biological son," he added as if that mattered. An awkward silence fell over the table. "Oh," Ricardo Munoz said slowly. "So you're Julian's brother?" "Not exactly," Leo cleared his throat. I'm the real son. Julian is, well, my mother helped him when he was a boy, but Julian interrupted him with a voice of steel. When this mother lost her house in a fire, you closed the door in her face. Or am I mistaken? All eyes turned to Leo. That was a misunderstanding. Leo started to sweat. I was under a lot of stress and, Julian insisted. And that's why you told her there was no room for a burden like her? And that's why you let your wife call her dramatic and a manipulator? Isabella turned pale. Julian, I don't know what Eleanor told you, but... She didn't tell me anything, Julian said, taking out his phone. She didn't have to. I hired investigators, professionals, and I found out exactly what kind of person you are, Isabella, and what kind of man you've let Leo become. He placed the phone on the table. He pressed play. Isabella's voice filled the private room. Leo, I've told you 1,000 times, your mother is a professional manipulator. The guests' faces changed, from curiosity to shock, to revulsion. The audio continued, every poisonous word, every lie, every manipulation. When it finished, no one spoke. Leo's head was bowed. Isabella was trembling with rage. This is a trap, Isabella hissed. You brought us here to humiliate us. No, Julian put his phone away. I brought you here to show you a mirror, so you could see what I see, what everyone here sees now. Monica touched my hand. Mrs. Vance, I'm so sorry. No one should have to go through something like this. Thank you, my dear, I said softly. Albert looked at Leo with barely disguised contempt. Is that true? You left your mother on the street after she lost her house? Leo opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. It's complicated. No, my voice came out clear, firm. It's not complicated. It's simple. I gave you everything for 42 years. I gave you my youth, my money, my unconditional love. And when I needed you for the first time in my life, you closed the door because your wife told you to, and you chose to believe her instead of me. Mom, no. I held up my hand. I am not your mother anymore, Leo. Not in the way that matters. Because being a mother isn't just about giving birth. It's about being present. It's about caring. It's about protecting. And I did all of that for you, but you did none of it for me when it mattered. Tears were running down my face, but I didn't wipe them away. I let everyone see them. Julian, I continued, this man who doesn't share my blood but shares my heart came to get me in a helicopter. He gave me a roof, dignity, respect. He is my son, the only one that matters. Julian's eyes were also moist. Isabella stood up abruptly. We are not staying here to be humiliated. Let's go, Leo. But Leo didn't move. He stared at the table as if all the memories were hitting him at once. Do you remember? I told him softly, when you were 7 and had scarlet fever? I spent 3 nights without sleep taking care of you, praying to the Holy Mother not to take you, and when you got better, you promised me that when you grew up, you would take care of me the same way. Do you remember that promise, son? A tear fell down his cheek. Mom, I'm releasing you from that promise, I said. You don't owe me anything anymore, but I don't owe you anything either. We're even. Leo, let's go. Isabella pulled his arm. This time, he stood up. But before he left, he looked at me one last time. I'm sorry, he whispered. I am too, I replied. I'm sorry you're not the man I thought you would be. They left, their footsteps echoing on the marble floor, leaving behind a heavy silence. Diana broke the silence. You are an incredible woman, Mrs. Vance. Few would have such strength. It's not strength, I admitted. It's survival. You learn to survive when you have no other choice. Julian raised his wine glass. A toast, he said, to the mothers who choose us, to the families we build, not the ones we're given, and to the dignity that no one can take from us. Only we can give it away. Everyone raised their glasses. To Eleanor, they said in unison. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled, a real, complete smile. Because although I had lost a son that night, I had gained something more valuable, my self-respect. But Julian still had one more card up his sleeve, something he hadn't told me, something that was going to change everything, and that was going to teach Leo the hardest lesson of all. After Leo and Isabella left, dessert arrived, a rich flan with vanilla bean ice cream, but I could barely eat. My heart was beating too fast. The conversation at the table had shifted. It was no longer formal and corporate. It had become more intimate, more real. "Julian," said Javier Cardenas, wiping his mouth with his napkin. That was probably the most uncomfortable, but also the most honest dinner I've ever attended. "I apologize if I made you all feel uneasy." Julian looked genuinely abashed. "Don't apologize." Monica shook her head. "We needed to see that. We all need to be reminded of what's truly important in life. My own mother is in a nursing home because I've been too busy to care for her. I'm calling her first thing tomorrow." Albert nodded. "It's easy to get lost in the money, in business, in keeping up appearances. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is who was there when you had nothing." Julian looked at me. "That's why I wanted to make this public, Mom. Not just to humiliate Leo, but to remind him, and to remind myself, what loyalty means, what real family means." There was a moment of comfortable silence. Then Julian took a deep breath. "But there's something else I need to share tonight, something I haven't even told Mom Eleanor." I turned to him, surprised. "What is it, son?" Julian took an envelope from his jacket. Thick paper, sealed with a red wax seal. "This," he placed it on the table in front of me, "is something I've been working on for 3 weeks, since before the fire, actually. But recent events have confirmed that it's the right thing to do. Julian, you're scaring me. Don't be scared." He smiled gently. Quite the opposite. He opened the envelope and took out several documents. He unfolded them carefully and showed me. The header read, "Petition for Adult Adoption." I gasped. What is this?" "It's the formal request for you to legally adopt me, Mom. I know I'm technically an adult, and adult adoption is uncommon, but in special cases, when there's a documented pre-existing bond of parentage, the law allows it. I've hired the best family law attorneys in the country." Tears started to fall before I could stop them. "Son, I always wanted it to be official. I always wanted to be able to say it legally." His voice wavered slightly. "This is my mother, not just in my heart, legally, before God, before the law, before the whole world. I want your last name to be my last name. I want that when they fill out medical forms and ask for next of kin, your name is there. I want everything I've built, everything I am, to be legally tied to you. But Julian, you already have a last name, Croft, your biological father's name. A father I never knew, a man who got my mother pregnant and disappeared. That name means nothing to me." He took out another document. "This is a petition for a name change, from Julian Anthony Croft to Julian Vance Croft. Your name first, as it should be." I couldn't speak. I just cried. The others at the table were also emotional. I saw Diana discreetly wiping her eyes. And there's more. Julian took out a third document. "This is my updated will. I want you to know what it says, Mom, because it directly involves you. Julian, I don't need to know about your will. You need to know, because Leo needs to know." That made me stop. "What do you mean?" Julian looked at his guests. "Forgive the frankness, but this is important. My current net worth is valued at approximately $110 million. Companies, properties, investments, it's a lot of money." Albert let out a low whistle. "I didn't know you were at that level, Julian. Hard work and some luck." He shrugged. "But the point is this. In my previous will, I had no direct heirs. The money was to be divided among several charities." "That's noble," Fernanda commented. "Yes, but it wasn't right. Because I have family. I have Mom Eleanor." He looked at me intensely. According to this new will, when I die, 50% of everything I own goes directly to you, Mom. No conditions, no restrictions. Son, no, I almost shouted. That's too much. I don't need. It's not about need, it's about deserving. His tone was firm. You invested in me when no one else would. You gave me not just food and a roof, but dignity, hope, a future. This is my return on investment for you. But, and the other 50%? Those go to foundations that help homeless children. Julian smiled with a certain sadness. Children like I was, so that others might have the luck I had of finding an Eleanor Vance in their lives. Monica applauded softly. Then everyone followed. That's beautiful, Julian, Albert said. But why tell us all this at this dinner? Because I need witnesses. Julian looked around the table. Credible witnesses. Respectable people who can attest to my state of mind, my intentions, that this is not an impulsive decision. And because, his expression hardened, I need it so that when Leo comes calling, and he will come, you can confirm that this is real. You think he'll be back? Ricardo asked. I know he will. Julian picked up his phone and showed the screen. He's already started texting. Look. Leaning over, I saw the string of messages from Leo. Julian, can we talk? I think you misunderstood some things. My mother is important to me. I was just confused. Isabella has her issues. I'm working on it. Can you tell me exactly how much you're investing in the new project? The last message said it all. It wasn't about me. It was about the money. He saw the Valley Towers. Julian put the phone away. He heard $100 million. And he's calculating, thinking about opportunities, investments, inheritances. It's so obvious, Javier murmured, so predictable. That's why I need all of you to know the truth. Julian stood up. When Leo comes and asks you about this dinner, about my relationship with Mom Eleanor, about my financial situation, I need you to tell him exactly what you saw and heard. No embellishments. No diplomacy, the raw truth. Count on it. Albert also stood up and extended his hand to me. Mrs. Vance, it is an honor to meet such an extraordinary woman, and Julian's son. If you ever need partners for any project, count me in. Any man who treats his mother like this deserves my respect. And my money. The others nodded in agreement. The dinner ended an hour later. Each couple said goodbye to me with genuine hugs, with promises to see each other again, with an admiration I didn't feel I deserved, but which I accepted with gratitude. When we were finally alone, Julian and I in his SUV heading back to the hotel, I let out everything I had been holding in. Why did you do all that? I cried. The adoption, the will, the witnesses. It's too much, son. It's not too much. He drove slowly, carefully. It's the minimum. Mom, you sold your only piece of land to pay for my college. $100,000 that was your safety net. You spent it on me because I loved you, because I believed in you. Exactly. And now I believe in you, that you deserve security, that you deserve to know that you will never, ever be alone or unprotected again. He stopped at a red light and looked at me. If something happens to me tomorrow, I want to die knowing I left you protected. That my life had meaning because I gave back to you even a fraction of what you gave me. But 50% of your assets, son, that's a fortune. $55 million, he nodded. More or less. And every penny comes with my blessing. Spend it on travel, on fine clothes, on helping others. Whatever you want. Because that money may have my name on it, but it has your heart imprinted on every bill. I couldn't respond. I just cried. The light turned green. Julian kept driving. And about Leo, he said after a moment, he's going to call, probably tomorrow. He'll want to fix things. He'll say he's sorry, that Isabella manipulated him, that he always loved you. And what do you want me to do? I want you to do what your heart tells you, he glanced at me. But I also want you to understand something, Mom. People don't really change. Not unless they lose something important. Leo has never lost anything. He's always had your unconditional love. He always knew you'd come back. That's why he allowed himself the luxury of treating you badly. So, I should punish him? No. You should teach him. There's a difference. Punishment is revenge. Teaching is tough love. And sometimes, the greatest love we can give is to let someone face the consequences of their actions. We arrived at the hotel. Julian parked, but neither of us got out. On Monday, he said, "I'm going to the courthouse with the adoption papers. If you sign, Mom, in 6 weeks, we will officially be mother and son under the law, and your name will appear on all my documents, on my updated birth certificate, on everything." Are you sure about this, Julian? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. He took my hand. You saved me when I was 9 years old. Now let me save you, not just with money or houses, but by giving you the title you've always deserved, my mother. Legal, official, undeniable. We hugged right there in the hotel parking lot. And for the first time in my life, I understood what it truly meant to have a son. It wasn't who came out of your womb. It was who chose to stay, who chose to love you, who chose to honor you. And I had the blessing of raising that kind of son, even though I didn't know it until I lost everything, and he was the only one who came back to get me. But Julian was right about Leo. The next day, my phone rang, and when I saw the name on the screen, I knew the final act of this story was about to begin. The phone rang at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, Leo. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Mom. His voice sounded tired, hoarse. I need to see you, please. For what, Leo? To talk. To apologize properly. Not over text, not over the phone, in person, the way it should be. There was something in his tone that made me hesitate. Was it genuine, or was it another performance? I don't know if I'm ready to... Please, Mom, I'm begging you, give me one chance to explain, for you to understand what really happened. Julian was in front of me at that moment, having breakfast in the suite. I made a sign to him, asking what to do. He wrote on a napkin, "Say yes. Tell him to come here, to the hotel. I want to be present." "All right," I said finally. "Come to the Beverly Hills Hotel, Suite 1804 at 11. You're staying there?" The surprise in his voice was genuine. "Yes, Leo, Julian has had me here since the day of the fire." Silence. Then, "Okay, I'll be there." "Thank you, Mom." He hung up. Julian put down his coffee cup. "All right. Now listen to me very carefully, Mom. What's going to happen today will be difficult, but you need to be strong. Can you do that? What do you think is going to happen? I think Leo will come with a prepared speech. He'll cry. He'll blame Isabella for everything. He'll say he's realized his mistakes. And some of that might be true. But Mom," he took my hands, "you need to watch not just what he says, but what he asks. That's where the truth will be." At 11 o'clock sharp, there was a knock on the door. Julian opened it. Leo was on the other side, alone. No Isabella. He was wearing jeans and a casual shirt. Not his usual business attire. He looked younger like this, more vulnerable, like the boy he used to be. "Come in." Julian made space. Leo entered, looking around. The huge windows, the elegant furniture, the fresh flowers. His expression was one of amazement mixed with something else. Envy. Mom. He walked over to me and knelt, literally knelt where I was sitting on the sofa. "Forgive me. Please forgive me." Tears were streaming down his face. They looked real. "Leo." "No, let me talk. I need to say this." He took a deep breath. "I was an idiot. A selfish, blind idiot. I let Isabella poison me against you. I let her make me believe horrible things that weren't true. And when you needed me most, I failed you in the worst possible way." His hand sought mine. He took it. It was trembling. After the dinner the other night, I couldn't sleep. Isabella was furious, screaming about how Julian humiliated us. But I couldn't stop thinking about your face, your words, about how I told you that you were a burden. He sobbed. How could I have said that to you? How could I close that door? How could you? My voice came out harder than I intended. Because I'm weak, he admitted. Because I've always been weak. You were strong for both of us. You worked double shifts. You sold your land. You sacrificed yourself over and over, and I just took. I never asked what you needed. I never stopped to think if you were okay. I just assumed you would always be there. Unconditional, no matter how I treated you. Julian remained standing by the window, watching everything without a word. And when I met Isabella, Leo continued, she made me feel important, successful, like I was finally someone. But the price of that was pushing you away. She has issues, Mom. Issues with her self-esteem, with control. She needs to be the center of everything, and I was so stupid that I chose to please her instead of honoring you. And now I asked, what's changed? Last night, he looked me in the eyes. Last night, I saw what I lost. I saw how Julian treats you. I saw the respect in those businessmen's eyes when they spoke to you. I saw the dignity that I took from you. And I realized that I lost my mother, not because of the fire, because of my own stupidity. He fell silent, waiting for my response. I didn't know what to say, because it all sounded sincere. But Julian's words echoed in my head. Watch not just what he says, but what he asks. Leo, I said carefully, I appreciate your apology, I really do. But words are easy. Actions are what count. I know. That's why I came to offer you something. He stood up. I want you to come live with me, not as a temporary guest, as my mother. I can have an annex built onto the house, a whole suite for you, with your own entrance, your kitchen, your space, your privacy. And Isabella? Julian asked from his place by the window. Leo looked at him. Isabella will have to accept it. She's my mother, my house, my decision. Did you tell her you were coming here? Julian insisted. A pause. Too long. Not exactly. What does that mean? I asked. It means she doesn't know. We had a horrible fight last night. I told her I needed time to think. I stayed at a hotel. I came straight from there. Julian crossed his arms. So you haven't broken up with her? You haven't told her things are going to change. You just ran away. It's complicated, Julian. We've been together for 5 years. I can't just... But you could just close the door in your mother's face at her worst moment. Julian didn't raise his voice, but the tone was as sharp as glass. That wasn't complicated. That was instantaneous. Leo turned pale. You're right. You're absolutely right. But I'm here now, aren't I? I'm trying to fix it. Or are you trying to secure a seat at the table? Julian took a step forward. Because let's be honest, Leo, last night you heard numbers. 100 million in investment, 110 million in assets. And now you come with offers of annexes and private spaces. It's not because of that, isn't it? Julian took out his phone. Then explain these messages you sent me last night. He read them aloud. How much exactly are you investing in the new project? Do you have partners, or is it your own investment? Are the Valley Towers your only active development? Leo said nothing. You didn't ask how Mom Eleanor was, Julian continued. You didn't ask if she needed anything. You didn't ask how you could help. You asked about money. You asked about investments, about opportunities. I work in the financial market, Julian. It's normal for me to have professional curiosity. Don't play dumb. The words sounded harsh, coming from Julian. You know exactly what you're doing. You came because you realized the starving kid from the couch now has more money than you, and that your mother, the one you scorned, is now connected to that money. And you can't stand it. That's not true. Leo stood up. I came because I realized my mistake, because I want my mother back. You want her back? Julian laughed without humor. Or do you want to make sure that when she inherits something from me, you're in the picture? The silence that followed was deafening. Leo looked at me. Mom, don't believe him. He's trying to drive us apart. He wants you all to himself. No, I said. and my voice sounded firmer than I expected. I don't believe him, Leo. He's right. I stood up. You didn't ask how I am. You didn't ask if I'm sleeping well, if I'm eating well, if the nightmares from the fire still wake me up at night. You asked about money. Mom, And look at this. I walked to the table where I had left my phone. Last night, after the dinner, you sent me a message. Just one. I found the message and read it aloud. Mom, is it true that Julian is leaving you something in his will? How much? I need to know to help you plan. I looked him directly in the eyes. You didn't say, I'm sorry. You didn't say, I'm ashamed. You said, how much? That's your question. That's always your question now. I was worried he was manipulating you. Me? Manipulating her? Julian laughed bitterly. Man, you've got it all backwards, but you know what? I'll do something. I'll give you exactly what you came for. Information. He walked to his briefcase and took out the adoption documents. He placed them on the coffee table. This is a petition for legal adoption. Mom Eleanor is going to officially adopt me. I'm changing my last name to include hers. And yes, she's in my will, for 50% of everything I own. Leo's eyes widened. He did the quick math in his head. I saw it. $55 million. But, Julian continued, there's something you should know. That money comes with a condition. The condition is that Mom Eleanor never again has to beg for love, never again has to wonder if she's a burden, never again has to knock on doors that should be open to her. Julian, wait. No, you wait. Julian approached him. Your whole life, your mother gave you everything, and now that someone else is giving her something, you come running. Not for her, for you, for fear of losing, for fear of being left out. I love her, Leo shouted. I love my mother. Do you love me? I asked, and my voice broke. Do you love me, son? Yes, with all my heart. Then tell me. The tears were streaming down my face. Why do I feel like you just rediscovered me? Why do I feel like I'm only valuable to you now that Julian has valued me first? Leo opened his mouth, closed it. He had no answer, because the truth was obvious, painful, undeniable. He had rediscovered me not out of love, but out of fear of losing an inheritance that was never his to begin with. Go home, Leo, I said softly. Go to your house, to your wife, to your life, and think hard about who you want to be, because the man you are now is not the man I raised. Mom, please. I'm giving you the same choice you gave me. My voice was firm now. There's no room for you here, not in the way you want, not until you can come without a calculator in your hand, without questions about wills and inheritances, just with a truly repentant heart. Leo looked at me for a long moment. I saw it when the mask fell. I saw when reality hit him. I saw when he understood that he had lost everything, not the money, me. He left without another word. The door closed behind him with a soft click, just like the click of the door he had closed in my face on the day of the fire. The difference was that this time, I was the one closing it. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for setting boundaries. I felt free. 2 weeks of silence passed. 2 weeks in which Leo didn't call, didn't write, didn't show up, and honestly, I was grateful. I needed that space to process everything, to heal, to start seeing my life with new eyes. Julian and I went to the courthouse the following Monday. I signed the adoption papers. The judge, an older man with kind eyes, looked at both of us and said, "In 30 years of working in family law, I've seen it all, but rarely have I seen a love as pure as this. My congratulations to you both." I cried right there in his office, tears of joy this time. The reconstruction of my house also began. Julian hired the best architects. They showed me the blueprints, 3 bedrooms instead of 2, state-of-the-art electrical systems, a security system, solar panels, a new modern house, but with the soul of the old one. It will be ready in 4 months, Julian said. In March, just in time for your 69th birthday. But life has curious ways of closing circles, and Leo's circle wasn't closed yet. On Friday afternoon, 2 weeks after his visit to the hotel, I received a call, but not from Leo, from Isabella. Eleanor? Her voice sounded different, less arrogant, almost nervous. Isabella? Yes. Look, I know things between us haven't been good, and I know a lot of that is my fault, but I need to talk to you. It's important. It's about Leo. My stomach clenched. What about Leo? He's been different since that dinner. Since he saw you, he's been distant, quiet, we've been fighting a lot. And now I'm worried he's going to do something stupid. Like what? That's what I need to talk to you about. In person. Could you come over to the house? Tomorrow afternoon, just you and me. Without Leo, without Julian, just us. Every instinct screamed at me to say no. But there was something in her voice, something that sounded like genuine fear. Does Leo know you're calling me? No. That's why I need you to come when he's not here. He works until 7 on Saturdays. If you come at 5, we'll have time to talk. I hesitated. Why should I trust you, Isabella? A long silence. Because I made horrible mistakes with you. Because I poisoned my husband against his own mother. And because now I'm seeing the consequences and I'm scared. Please, Eleanor, just an hour of your time. I hung up and immediately called Julian. I told him everything. It's a trap, he said without hesitation. It has to be. For what? What would she gain by setting a trap for me? I don't know, but I don't like it. Don't go alone. I can't take anyone. She said just the 2 of us. Then at least let me send Javier with you. Javier was Julian's driver and security. Have him wait for you outside. If anything happens, you call for him. Julian, you're overreacting. Mom, this woman lied to you for years. She said horrible things about you to Leo, and now suddenly she wants to talk? No, something is going on. In the end, we reached a compromise. I would go with Javier waiting outside. I would take my phone with the recorder on inside my purse. And if anything seemed wrong, I would leave immediately. On Saturday, at 5 o'clock sharp, I arrived at Leo's house. Javier dropped me off at the entrance. Mrs. Vance, I'll be right here. If anything happens, just shout. I'll be listening. Thank you, my dear. I'll be fine. I rang the bell. Isabella opened it almost immediately. She was wearing jeans and a simple blouse, no makeup, hair pulled back in a ponytail. She didn't look like the arrogant woman I knew. Eleanor, thank you for coming. She let me in. Do you want some coffee? Water? Water is fine. We sat in the living room, that enormous room with furniture that cost more than my car, or rather, the car I once had. Isabella handed me a glass of water. Her hands were trembling slightly. I know I have no right to ask you for anything, she began. I know I was horrible to you, that I said terrible things, that I manipulated Leo against you. Why? The question came out simpler than I expected. Why did you hate me so much? She looked down at her lap. Because I was afraid of you. Afraid? Of me? Yes. Afraid that Leo loved you more than he loved me. That you would always be more important. I come from a family where my mother was terrible to my brother's wife. She made her feel small, inadequate, never good enough. I saw how it destroyed their marriage, and I swore I would never let a mother-in-law have that power over me, but I never. I know, she interrupted me. I know that now. You never tried to control Leo. You never spoke ill of me, even though God knows I gave you reasons. It was me. I projected my fears onto you, and I convinced Leo that you were the enemy when, in reality, I was the problem. This was not what I expected. Not at all. Why are you telling me this now? Isabella took a deep breath. Because Leo is obsessed. Since that dinner, he's been obsessed with Julian, with his money, with the will, with the adoption. He talks about it all the time. He calculates, he plans. He asks me things like, "Do you think if I get closer to my mom, Julian will include me in something?" Or, "What would happen if I legally contested the will?" I felt nauseous. He's going to contest the will? He's thinking about it. He's consulted a lawyer. They told him that as the biological son, he has a right to a portion of any inheritance, no matter what the will says. It's the law. But Julian is alive. There's no inheritance to claim. Not yet. Isabella looked at me with sad eyes. But Leo is thinking long term, and I don't recognize the man I married anymore. He's become someone who only thinks about money, about what he can get, about what he deserves. And what do you want me to do? I want you to talk to him, to put him in his place, to tell him that if he continues down this path, he's going to lose you forever. Because I've already told him, and he doesn't listen. He says I'm being dramatic, that I don't understand family strategy. Family strategy. The words made me shudder. Isabella, you pushed him away from me. You planted these seeds, and now you want me to save him? Yes. Tears were now running down her face. Because I was wrong. Completely wrong. I thought pushing him away from you would make us stronger as a couple. But it only made him more bitter, more selfish. And now I'm afraid of what he's becoming. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. And there's something else, something you need to know. What? Leo is planning to come see you again, but not alone. He's coming with a plan. He wants you to move in here, yes. But not for love. It's to be close to Julian, to build a relationship with him, to position himself before something happens. Before something happens? I repeated, confused. Isabella looked at me with horror in her eyes. Eleanor, my husband is thinking about ways to speed things up, so the inheritance comes sooner. The world stopped. What exactly are you saying? I'm saying I heard Leo on the phone with someone, about accidents, about what would happen if Julian had a problem. An accident before he gets married, before he has kids, about how to ensure you inherit. And then he could manage those finances as your son. I felt like I was going to be sick. You're lying. I wish I were lying, Isabella almost shouted. I wish all of this were a lie, but I've seen the papers Leo has hidden. I've heard his calls. I've seen how he transforms when he talks about money. And I'm scared, Eleanor, scared that he's going to do something terrible. My phone was recording all of this, every word, every accusation. Why are you telling me all this? What do you gain? I want to save my husband, she said simply, before he does something he can't come back from, before he destroys his life for greed. And yes, I was the one who started this. I was the one who pushed him away from you. But I don't want it to end like this. I don't want him to become a criminal because of my poison. She stood up and walked to a shelf. She took out an envelope. This is everything I've gathered. Messages I found on his phone, notes he left in his office, names of lawyers who specialize in wills, everything. She handed me the envelope. My hands trembled as I took it. And if I show this to the police? Do it. Maybe he needs a scare like that to wake up. Maybe he needs to face real consequences before it's too late. I stood up. I needed to get out of there, to process all of this. Eleanor? Isabella stopped me at the door. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for everything. If I could go back in time. But you can't, I said. None of us can. We can only decide what to do with the time we have left. I left that house feeling like the world had turned upside down again. Javier saw my face and knew immediately that something serious had happened. Ma'am, are you all right? Take me to Julian, now. The whole way, I clutched the envelope to my chest. Inside was evidence that my son, the boy I carried, fed, and loved, was planning something unforgivable. And the worst part wasn't the betrayal, it was that a part of me wasn't surprised. Because when you plant poison, you can't be surprised when snakes grow. And Isabella was right about one thing. She had planted the seeds, but Leo had watered them. He had nurtured them. He had let them grow into something monstrous, and now we were all going to reap this terrible harvest. Julian read the contents of the envelope 3 times, every page, every message, every note. His expression grew harder with each line. We were in his office, a glass building on Wilshire Boulevard, 20th floor with a view of the entire city. I was sitting across from his mahogany desk, feeling small despite the enormous space. "This is serious, Mom," he said finally, dropping the papers on the desk. "Very serious." How serious? Conspiracy to commit fraud, possibly something worse. "Look at this." He pointed to a handwritten note by Leo. "If E inherits from JC, can I be her power of attorney, control funds due to senile mental incapacity? He's planning to declare you incompetent after I die to get the money." The words hit me like hammers. "And here," Julian continued, "a message to a lawyer asking about accelerating inheritance processes in case of accidental death. Mom, he's literally researching how to kill me and make it look like an accident." My God, I covered my mouth. "What am I going to do?" "What are we going to do?" he corrected me. "Because this isn't just your problem anymore. It's mine too. And I have an idea." "Julian, no more games, no more plans. This has gone too far." "Exactly. That's why we need a final plan, one that ends this once and for all." He leaned back in his chair. "But I need your permission, because it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt a lot." "What do you have in mind?" Julian steepled his fingers, as he did when he was thinking seriously. "We're going to give Leo exactly what he wants. One last chance. A family dinner, here at my house. I'll tell him I've reflected, that I want to make peace, that I want to include him in my life, in our lives. And there, in front of a notary and witnesses, we'll reveal everything." Reveal? For what? So he can see the consequences of his actions, so he understands that he can't manipulate people without a price. And to give you, he looked at me with intensity, the opportunity to say what you need to say, to close this chapter of your life with dignity. I thought of Leo, the baby he was, the boy he was, the man he had become. And after, we let him go. We don't go to the police because I don't want my mother to have to testify against her son in a courtroom, but we're not letting him get away with it either. We simply let him go. No inheritance, no family, no us. So he can live with his decisions. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. Do it. Arrange the dinner. The invitation reached Leo on Wednesday, a text from Julian. "Brother, I've been thinking a lot. I know things have been tense, but you're my mother's son, and that makes you my family too. Could we have dinner at my house? This Saturday, just the 3 of us, to talk for real, to start over." Leo replied in less than 5 minutes. "I would love that. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll be there." Julian lived in a house in Bel Air. It wasn't ostentatious, but it was elegant. 3 floors, an inner garden, a stone fountain at the entrance. I stayed there from Friday to prepare everything. On Saturday afternoon, as we cooked together, I was making meatballs and sauce, Julian was preparing rice. He told me, "Mom, when Leo arrives, I'm going to let you lead the conversation. I'll just be here for support. This is your moment, your closure. I don't know if I can." "You can. You've been strong your whole life. One more time, Mom, just one more time." At 7 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. Julian opened it. Leo was there, with an expensive bottle of wine and a nervous smile. He came alone. No Isabella, brother. Leo gave him a hug. "Thank you for this. Come in, come in." Julian guided him to the dining room. When Leo saw me in the kitchen, his expression lit up. "Mom, you're cooking. I haven't had your food in years." "Yes," I said simply. "I thought it would be appropriate. One last family meal." If he noticed the strangeness of my words, he didn't show it. We sat at the table. Julian poured the wine. We made a toast. The conversation started light, superficial. the weather, the traffic, trivialities. But after the first course, Julian changed the tone. Leo, I called you here because I want to be transparent with you about my relationship with Mom Eleanor, about my future plans. Leo sat up straighter in his chair, attentive. I'm listening. As you know, I'm in the process of legally adopting Mom, and she's in my will, but I've been thinking, you're her biological son. It makes sense for you to be part of this family too, doesn't it? Leo's eyes shone. Yes. Yes, I would love that, to be part of all this. Great, Julian nodded. So let me ask you something directly. Why do you want to be part of this family, Leo? The question hung in the air. Why? Because it's my family, my mother. And you? Well, we grew up together. You're like a brother. A brother? Julian smiled coldly. When I was 9 and sleeping on your living room couch, you called me the charity case. Not brother. Never brother. Leo turned pale. I was a kid. Kids say stupid things. You're right. Julian took out his phone. Kids say stupid things, but adults plan things, serious things. He pressed play. Leo's voice filled the room. It was a recording of a call. Leo talking to a lawyer about accelerating inheritance processes and accidents that benefit the secondary heir. The color completely drained from Leo's face. Where? How did you get that? It doesn't matter how. Julian put the phone on the table. What matters is that it exists. Just like your notes about declaring Mom incompetent exist. Just like your messages asking about challenging wills exist. Julian, I can explain. No, I interrupted him, my voice rising stronger than I expected. You can't explain. There is no explanation for this, Leo. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I held myself steady. I carried you in my belly for 9 months. I felt every kick, every movement. When you were born, you were so small, so perfect. I cried with happiness. I thought, this boy is my purpose, my reason for being. The tears started to fall, but I continued. I gave you my milk. I changed thousands of diapers. I stayed up all night when you had a fever. I worked double shifts so you could have toys at Christmas. I sold my only piece of land, my only safety net, so you could have an education. I gave you 42 years of my life, Leo. 42 years. Mom. And when I needed a roof over my head, you called me a burden. When I needed love, you closed the door. When I needed a son, you sent me to beg for dignity on the street. My voice broke, but I didn't stop. And now I find out that you not only rejected me, not only humiliated me, you were planning to declare me incompetent. You were researching how to make Julian die to get money that was never yours. I wasn't going to do anything. Leo was crying now. I was just exploring options, thinking about the future. Thinking about killing me? Julian stood up too. Is that exploring options? No, I would never do that. You have to believe me. I don't have to believe anything. My voice was steel now. And I don't. Because a man who can close the door on his own mother the day she loses her house is capable of anything. I walked over to where he was sitting. I knelt to be at his eye level, forcing him to look at me. I'm going to tell you something, son. And I want you to listen carefully. I forgive you. Leo sobbed. Mom. I forgive you, I repeated. Because carrying resentment would do more harm to me than to you. I forgive you for closing the door. I forgive you for believing Isabella. I forgive you for calling me a burden. I even forgive you for planning horrible things. I stood up. But forgiving you doesn't mean I want you in my life. Those are two different things. I can forgive and still choose to protect myself. I can forgive and still say, enough. Please don't do this. I already have. I wiped my tears. I did it the day you came to see me at the hotel, and the only thing you asked was how much money there was. I did it the day I read your notes about declaring me incompetent. I did it today before you arrived, when I decided I deserve better. Julian placed a hand on my shoulder. Leo, we're not going to the police. Out of respect for Mom, because she doesn't deserve to go through a trial watching her son be accused of conspiracy. But you're not getting anything from us either. Nothing. He took out a document. This is a notarized declaration, signed this afternoon. In it, Mom Eleanor officially renounces any legal obligation to you. You are no longer her dependent. She is no longer your responsibility. You are legally disconnected in every way except for the birth certificate. And that can't be changed. What? Leo took the paper with trembling hands. And this, Julian took out another document, is my updated will. Notarized, certified. In it, it is clearly specified that you, Leo Vance, are explicitly excluded from any inheritance, direct or indirect. If Mom Eleanor inherits from me, that money will be in a trust that you cannot touch. Ever. Under any circumstances. You can't do this. We already have, I said. And you know what's saddest, son? This isn't a punishment. It's a liberation. I'm freeing you from the burden of pretending to love me, and I'm freeing myself from the burden of hoping that one day you'll truly love me. Leo looked at the papers, then at me, then at Julian. What if I change? What if I become a better person? Then change, I said softly. Become better, for you, for Isabella, for your future children, if you decide to have them, but not for me. Not to win me back, because I won't be waiting anymore. Mom, goodbye, Leo. The words were the hardest I had ever said in my life. I wish you a good life. I wish you find peace. I wish that one day you understand what you've lost, but I won't be here to see you realize it. Julian walked to the door and opened it. It's time to go. Leo stood up like a zombie. He walked to the door. On the threshold, he turned one last time. Will I ever be able to come back? Is there any way to fix this? Julian and I looked at each other. Then I looked at him. If in 5 years you seek me out without asking about money, without mentioning inheritances, without calculating what you can get, just as a son who misses his mother and wants to know her again, maybe, just maybe. But that's your decision, Leo, not mine. I've already made mine. He left, this time without protest, without pleading, just with the truth finally staring him in the face. The door closed. Julian held me as I cried. I cried for the son I had, for the son I lost, for the years I wasted waiting to be valued, for everything. It's over, Mom, Julian whispered. It's over. 6 months later, my house was finished. Not just rebuilt, reborn, with terracotta-colored walls, large windows that let the sun in, a modern kitchen where I brewed fresh coffee every morning, a new piano, a gift from Julian, occupied the living room. But most importantly, there were new photos. Photos of Julian and me at his office, the day the adoption was finalized. Photos of us in Malibu at the inauguration of the Valley Towers. Photos from his birthday, my birthday, the times we cooked together. New memories, new family, new life. Julian got married in April. A beautiful woman named Andrea, a pediatrician with a heart as big as her intelligence. At the wedding, when he introduced me to his friends, he said, "She's my mother, the bravest woman I know." I cried with happiness. In June, the news came. Andrea was pregnant. A boy, my first grandson. Well, technically, my first official grandson. What should we name him? Julian asked one afternoon as we had tea in my garden. That's your and Andrea's decision, son. We want to name him Arthur, after my grandfather, the man who, although he didn't want to adopt me, treated me with kindness when I lived in his house. More tears, always more tears, but good ones. From Leo, total silence. I heard through Mrs. Gable, who now visited me frequently and with genuine respect, that he and Isabella had moved to Chicago. A new job, a new beginning. I hoped it was real, that he was truly changing. But it was no longer my job to save him. It was no longer my responsibility to carry him. One afternoon in August, exactly 1 year after the fire, Julian and I sat on my new terrace, watching the sunset. "Do you know what day it is, Mom?" "Yes," I nodded. "A year since I lost my house." "And found your family," he added. "I found them," I smiled. "Or rather, I reclaimed them." "Because you were always there, son. I just needed to lose everything to see who really stayed." Julian took my hand. "Do you regret anything? Cutting ties with Leo?" I thought about it. "Honestly, it hurts," I admitted. "It hurts every day. Because a mother's love doesn't turn off like a switch. But I don't regret it. Because I learned something important. Loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you. And forgiveness doesn't mean endlessly turning the other cheek. Sometimes the greatest love is letting go." "You're wise, Mom." "No," I laughed. "I'm just old. And old age teaches you that peace is more important than being right. And that dignity is more valuable than any relationship that forces you to beg for respect." The sun set behind the buildings. The city lit up with millions of lights. And I, Eleanor Vance, now also the legal mother of Julian Vance Croft, felt complete for the first time in years. Because I learned that family isn't about who shares your blood. It's about who is willing to bleed with you. And sometimes, the son you didn't expect is exactly the son you needed. And sometimes, losing a house helps you find a home. And sometimes, the fire that destroys everything you know is the same fire that illuminates the path to who you really are. I am 69 years old. I don't know how many I have left, but I know this. I will live them with dignity, with love, with the son who chose to love me when he had no obligation. And if Leo one day knocks on my door without a calculator in his hand, without questions about inheritances, just with a truly repentant heart, well, we'll see. Because doors can be opened again, but only if the person on the other side has learned to value what's inside. Because in the end, true wealth isn't in what you own. It's in what you don't allow to be taken from you. Your dignity, your peace, your right to be loved without conditions. And if this story has touched your heart, if it has made you reflect on your own family relationships, on who is really there when everything falls apart, leave your comment. Tell me where you're listening from. Has something similar ever happened to you? Have you ever had to make difficult decisions about family? And if this confession has left you with something, please like and subscribe to the channel to continue sharing life stories like this one. Stories that remind us we are not alone, that others have also cried these tears, that others have also had to choose between loving and protecting themselves, and that always choosing to protect ourselves is not selfishness. It's survival, it's dignity, it's self-love. Because you can't pour from an empty cup, and I spent too many years letting others drink from me until I was dry. Now my cup is full again, and I only share it with those who appreciate the water, until the next story, where we will continue to remember that being strong doesn't mean not crying. It means getting up after every tear. And I got up, over and over again. And you can too.